This is the Drew Experience Show, the show that's 80% combat sports and 20% everything else. I think tonight's show is a very special show because I've had more female guests on lately, and I really want to show that there are some really badass females in combat sports. Tonight, I'm joined by one of the most decorated. She is among the greatest of all times in women's Kyokushin for Quebec and Canada. She is going to be a doctor next week. As of next week, I was going to say tonight, but it was till next week. So she's
You
going
have to
make,
wait a week.
wait a week. She's going to be an amazing doctor. She is an amazing human being for what she's doing, and I am very proud to welcome Kimm Carriere, who's represented Canada for Kyokushin, and also a future psychologist. Welcome, Kimm.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It's the honor is to have a guest like you. You know, the show doesn't happen without people like you and others that you've seen on the show. So to have you on, it's a very big deal.
Yeah, it's really great. It's great. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. So you're very decorated, obviously, and I like to ask you, who was Kimm before Kyokushin, and how did you get into martial arts? What happened there?
How did I get into it? It was a little, so I started when I was quite young, actually.
Okay.
I was around 6, and I had a twin brother, and there was a karate school that opened up really close by to where we lived. So my brother and I got on our bikes, and we were super excited, and we biked over there, and we checked it out, and we met actually my Shan right now. And he was there kind of getting the dojo already. He was setting it up, and he told it, and because my dad said, go ask them what style of karate it is. So we went there, asked him. We had no idea. We're like total noobs. And and Xian at the time, he was telling us, or he was sensei at the time, he told us it's Kyokushin. So we're like, oh, cool. Okay, we had no idea what that was. So we biked back home, super excited, told dad, hey, it's Kyokushin. And he's like, that's the style that I was training at.
Wow.
Yeah, super cool. Before your mom got pregnant with you guys. So he was training beforehand. And after she gave birth to us, it was a handful to have to take care of twins, obviously. He had to kind of stay home on dad duties. She was taking care of us all day long. So she needs some time off. So he just really couldn't train at night anymore. So he kind of put it on hold. But then fast forward all that time off, and then he started going so we're like, oh, well, I want to try it. This is really, really cool. I want to be like dad. So we showed up to the dojo, and it was like a trial class. And I still remember it. All the kids were in gis, and my Shan at the time was telling us, he's like, well, you can just show up on gis, wear your t-shirt and your shorts, and just go on with the other kids. And I was like, no, I want a gi. I didn't want to look different. I was like, no, I'm gonna get a gi. I want a gi. And he's like, well, I know, but you can't quit now because you have a gi on. And you're like, yeah, it's fine. Fast forward 19 years and still doing it. My brother stopped a while ago, but yeah, I loved it.
So what rank are you now a Sandan or are you a Nidan, basically?
No, I'm still a Nidan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did your brother achieve? He went up to Shodan, or?
No, he got all the way up to his green belt, but he kind of had to pick, he was doing elite hockey at the time. He was doing AA. So it took a lot out of him, and that was kind of his love and his thing. So he kind of shelved. He was never out of both of us, I was the feisty competitive one, and he was super low key. Mm-hmm. So he hated doing gradings. He hated all, not the competitiveness, but just the roughness of it. I guess it was just not his thing. So I stayed with it, and I'm still training with my dad. So my dad's also an instructor at our school, so it's our thing. It's cool.
It's straight out of a movie. It's like a storybook or a movie.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's cool that I get to share that with him, because I know there's not a men daughter-dad duos that are kind of doing that stuff. So it's fun.
Real life Samantha LaRusso and Daniel LaRusso.
Exactly.
Do you watch Cobra Kai?
A little bit, yes.
Okay.
It's a big thing now. So
oh my god, it's Revive Karate. I remember shout out to Pedro. When season 3 ended, I remember when season 3 came out on January 1st. I was off that day, so I locked myself in my room, and I'm told my 3 nieces, don't bug me, Do not knock on my door. Here's the iPad. Kill each other for it. I'm gonna be binging Cobra Kai. And then Pedro and I are like just going all like we had all, man, it's like Game of Thrones now, man. Damn you, Netflix.
It's better than Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
Arguably better than Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah. So, but that's amazing though that like it's all in the family basically. And your dad is he also a Nidan, or is he a Sandan or a Shodan?
He's a Sandan. He's a Sandan. So he's one of the main instructors at the school. Yeah.
That's awesome. It's so crazy. That's what I love about martial arts. Like there's always like some story behind it. Oh, I know this guy, or like I got into it because of this.
Yeah, and it's really cool because he probably would have stopped had we have not had, Shanjan, if he didn't open up the school near our house. It was just like haphazard that it was just there. It was like a 2-minute walk from our house. So yeah, it was cool. So it became kind of a part of our lifestyle, I guess, just as a family, just because it was so close. And then for me, I kept with it because it was so close. So I mean, I structured school around it and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it was fun. And then having my dad there too was something to share with him throughout the years.
So you just basically been there forever. And now you've also, so not only are you an accomplished Nidan and competitor, we'll get to that, but more importantly, what got you into psychology to get to where you are as a PhD?
Yeah. So so after high school, I went into CEGEP, and I was always I really always loved sciences, but I also was super nerdy. Like I have 1,001 books. I'm always reading. I'm very artsy, and I was kind of at this like I don't know. I went to Abbott, like the I don't know what you call it, like not show and tell. That's not how you say it. It was like a job fair or like program fair that you show up and you kind of look at all the different programs. And there was there was like the fine arts department. So I went there. I mean, I love my parents because they're so open and they're so like, you do you and whatever you want, we're totally going to support you. So it's like, well, I'm artistic. Like, I think this is so cool. I get to work with my hands and build these things. And you could see them. They were like, oh, come on. Like, you can do so much more than that. Not to say that it's not a good thing. But then right next to this art department or this art little like viewing space was liberal arts. And like, they had a stack of books, and I like fell in love with it. I had no idea what liberal arts was, but I was like, that is so cool. You get to study philosophy and history and, a little bit of science and all this sort of stuff. So I decided to just do that. So in CEGEP, I did 2 years of liberal arts, and I think it was great because it sort of prepared me for a heavy load of reading. All you're doing, you're just like reading books after books after books and writing lots of essays. And then by the time I got into university, it was kind of haphazard that I fell into psychology. I actually started university in art history.
I did history at Concordia. Yeah, I'm a history major.
Oh, you did? Oh, very cool.
But I'm not using my history major. Yeah, like, but I'm using my. How did you parlay your history degree in this podcast?
Hey man, whatever.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's not like life isn't linear, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I did started in art history, and I loved it. I mean, partially because I'm a visual learner. Like I don't know, it was so easy for me to take exams because exams are like you looking at slides, it's paintings, and I could remember everything about it. So I was like getting A pluses like here and there. And then I randomly took a psych class in my first year, and I was like, this is so fucking cool. I love this. It was about the brain. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to do a double major. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do psychology and I'm going to do art history. So I did 3 years of that. And then in the end, I knew I wanted to go into grad school because I just loved learning. So I was kind of like at a path. And during my first year, I ended up working in a lab at McGill as like a research assistant. And I got kind of a taste for what research was, and I fell in love with it. And it really kind of piqued my interest or piqued my curiosity about I always have like 1,001 things that are running in my head in terms of just like asking questions. And I used to piss my parents off because I'd ask so many questions all the time. I like got that from my dad. We love reading and love like just asking questions.
Yeah, you're curious.
Anyways, yeah, just super curious. And I found like, oh my God, this like there's a field for you that you can come up with a bunch of random questions and then test them. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And that you were like amongst people who also were very curious, and you got to have these curious discussions. And yeah, so then I just totally fell in love with it, stayed in that lab for, well, 3 years, ended up taking a year off. And then I reapplied into that lab. So I kind of grew up in that lab. So I started as an undergrad, and now I became a graduate student in that particular lab. And never regretted it, actually.
That's really insane. Like, and you said life's not linear, you know. For me,
At all.
I want it to be, so for like, you know, because I just want, eventually I'll probably get the question, well, how'd you come up with this podcast? So it's like, I wanted to be, first I wanted to be a lawyer, because, you know, it's like my parent, because like I'm a good talker, and I know how to fucking, like, when I have a mouth, like if I want to use it. But then everyone wanted to be a lawyer. So there's a surplus of lawyers. So that's the thing. Then then after that, I went into history at Concordia, and I had one teacher that just really, one of those teachers that just like really, you know, you ever had those teachers that just really like
Yeah.
change your perspective, and you're like, what am I doing? And
Mm-hmm.
I was in poli-sci at the
Yeah.
time. I hated
Okay.
poli-sci. And then I just went into history. So my goal was to become a history teacher, but there was unfortunately like circumstances where, like, you know, like my dad was terminally ill, then he passed away right
Mm-hmm.
before my second to last semester, and I was killing it. I lost motivation. So then when I reapplied, they said like, oh, well, your marks aren't high enough. But I had backing to say, listen, look at, this is like my stuff I've done. Like, I'm an ESL teacher. I've done coaching with like young adolescents and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, well, it's not good enough and your marks aren't good enough. But also, that's the problem with these education. Like, they look at the marks more than the experiences. And I said, what happened then doesn't mean I'm that person today. Like, you know, that, because things change, but it is what it is. I mean, so I always had a love of like trivial things, like with or pop culture, like with films and sports, like hockey. So that's why I love history, because I have a good memory. So then I
Mm-hmm.
got in, and then I got this book here. Let me show it to you. Where is it? Oh no, I put it in my closet. Anyways, it's the UFC visual history book. So it's got
Oh, that's so
all
cool.
you know what? Let me give me a second here,
Okay,
okay?
go get it. Go get it. I
Right
want to
here.
see it.
I'm back. So this
Okay.
is it.
Hi.
Hi. So this is it right here.
Oh, very
I
cool.
got it when I graduated. It was like, so here's what happened. So eventually, because we all know George St. Pierre. So when I used to work in my old job, his wrestling coach used to come shop there. So one day, like,
Ah, that's so cool.
yeah.
Very awesome.
And it's got everything here, like, you know, so this is my baby. It's like, you ever watch Back to the Future Part 2?
Yeah.
Remember Biff, how he keeps like that lottery, like that almanac?
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is mine. So it's got like, I'm not rich, okay? I'm not like Biff where he's rich and then he becomes like Donald Trump rich. So like, it's got like everything here, like all the
Oh,
visual
wow, that's super sick. Look at that.
years. Yeah,
Very cool.
it's crazy. So I got into
I didn't,
MMA. What are you saying?
okay. No, I said I didn't even know a book like that existed. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Kudos to
So,
whoever thought of putting that book together.
oh, they're amazing. I mean, the UFC knows how to market. Like, when it comes to marketing, they have the best marketers.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So wait, what history did you like? So if I ask you about your your
You
history
can,
background,
yeah, you can ask me questions too, by the way. Like, I want this to really
yeah,
be like, yeah,
yeah,
but
no problem.
that's
So
cool.
but I was gonna ask you, is there a specific time in history, like a
Yeah.
specific area that you're interested in?
Yeah, at first I was doing like European and American, but then I became
Okay.
interested in the Cold War and like because I'm
Mm,
half Iranian. My dad is my late father was Iranian, so I was
okay.
taking, and when I was doing courses on like Iranian, like Iran's role in the Cold War, also with Israel a bit. Um, Russian history, what was the Russian influence? When I started taking, it was basically foreign policy I was interested in, to understand like why, like how the world was operating back then. And I loved it. Like, I could tell you everything about Iran. That's what I love.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I loved history. And then for me it was history, but I loved it with art because I'm very visual. So me it's the Dutch golden period. That's like my thing.
Was
Super
that
nerdy, but if
was
you
that
bring me,
where the Dutch were like the traders of the world, basically? Is
yeah,
that what you mean?
yeah. And when they had where the paintings are just so realistic. It was of
Yes.
the period where it looks almost like a photograph. So I love that period.
It's
It's very
awesome.
cool.
That's what I love about history. Everyone has their periods, like, and it's not right or wrong. It's like I know
No.
some people that love World War I and World War II, and it's like, okay, that's cool. I love World War II as well, especially from the Russian side, because when you learn about the American and Canadian side, it's nice. But when you have it from the Russian perspective, like I'll never forget it. What my teacher said, like, God bless Professor Alison Rowley. She's like a successful author, like in terms too of like Russian history. So
Mhm.
Allison, so I'm quoting here and I'm butchering the quote, but she said, she's like, everyone thinks the Russians are like heroes, but she's like, there's no heroes in war. She's like, everyone is like brutal in their own way. She's like, if you think the Russians were like humane to the Germans, you guys have got to be mistaken, because you know how the Russian mentality is. It's like, you heard us, we're going to come back tenfold. And
Yeah, for
she went
sure.
into every detail. It's just so like, wow. Like, and we never really knew about this. So to see it from the Russian perspective, and then you understand why Russia is the way they are, it's like,
Yeah.
it's like I understand now why they don't really like see the West as a positive way, or like they don't want to, like, if you think of karate, like a lot of them don't speak English because of A, the poverty, and B, they don't feel they want to have to learn it. It's like, think of it, they used to think the West was like the enemy at the gate, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so sick, and it kind of dovetails what you're saying, is that I loved history, or just thinking about history, because it's cool. Well, first of all, it's cool when someone specializes in something. I think that's like the sickest thing, that someone
Yeah.
becomes such an expert in this one little thing and they could talk for hours on it. I'm always so impressed by that. But secondly, I love it because history talks about, like, you're seeing the world through a specific lens, right? So if you were to ask different groups, it's the same history, but there's no objective history, if that makes sense. And I find it's very interesting because it's very similar to psychology. This idea that, we see the world through our lenses, but someone else might not see it through that specific lens, right? But we're still looking at something. We're just interpreting it differently, which I find so interesting.
What kind of psychology are you specialized in?
Yeah, so the research that I'm doing right now, so I specialize in eating behaviors. And eating behaviors that are associated with obesity. So,
Okay.
like emotional eating, overeating, kind of managing your cravings. And I focus really on how we can use mindfulness as a way of training people to kind of better regulate their eating behaviors. So that's kind of my little niche. I'm in a health psychology lab, so we do a whole bunch of different things. So, like, how do we get people to exercise? How do you get people to sleep better? My thesis supervisor is very amazing in the sense that she allows you to kind of find a niche and really just explore stuff. So for me, I got to grow so much just because she just fueled my curiosity. So I'm like, hey, I want to do this. And she's like, sure. And I was like, I want to do this. She's like, okay, I want to do this. So I have like 1,001 projects going on, and it's super nutty. But it's cool because I get to have a question. No one's done it before. So I'm like, I'm going to build like a research program to figure this out. Yeah.
How do you
So it's
feel?
pretty sick.
How do you feel Kyokushin and martial arts has helped you with this and in your field? How has this really helped you get to where you are?
I think, yeah. I think that really it boils down to it gave me so many qualities, but one of it was this idea of like grit and like perseverance. Like, even you get smacked down and you don't, you don't get your belt, or someone beats you out or something like that. Like, you have to brush yourself off, kind of put your ego aside, and then keep moving forward, right? And this idea to just keep rolling with the punches, I think that's a really great metaphor because it's helped me so much in what I've done. This idea that, like, you can really do anything that you want to do, but you have to put in the time and the effort. I always said, there's, like, we can do everything that we want to, but we have to choose whether or not we want to, right? So an excuse is just an excuse. Like, if you don't want it bad enough, well, you'll find an excuse. So for me, I was always, a lot of people ask, like, how were you able to manage, like, competing still at that level while doing your PhD and, having a social life and, like, doing all these things and a really vast research program? I'm like, because I just decided that I wanted to do it. It's not to say it's easy, but it's just, you just don't make excuses. You just do it.
You find a way. Like I remember when I was getting like my green belt at my old school, like I was going twice a day because like I had to get out of there. Like I just wanted to leave, become independent. And you find a way. I was training with my coach Mohammed, who like I constantly mention on the show. I always give him a shout out. He's the reason why I got my green belt. And then I was like, he was training me, but I was also going to my other school afternoons and night times when I had the day off just to get my hours to get the belt. And you find a way. You really
Yeah, 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 for sure. For sure. And I really like that about my school in particular, was very much like they're not just gonna like hand you something. And I always go back, and it's funny that you said your green belt, because I was, I mean, I was always a very athletic person, so things came very easy for me. But I think my Xian kind of knew that I was a little bit of a lazy kid. Like I would just sort of right before exams, I'd be like cramming my catas in and trying to, get stuff done. But at one point, like that crap's not going to move you forward, right? So when we had our green belt exam, I ended up being the only one in the class that failed, and I think that was the best lesson for me. Because it was like you can't just scoot by without not actually putting in the effort. And it was it's like a switch went off, and I was like, okay, so if I really want something, like you have to work for it. Like people aren't just giving you handouts. Like that's not how the like world works.
you got to put the work in. That's the thing. I think we've like gone so much. That's the problem I think with society today. Some
Yeah,
people might say, no, you don't say that. Well, you know what? The truth is, like, if you're so miserable where you are, what are you doing? How are you managing your time? For example, like when I got the job I got now, you want to know how I got it? I had to accept the fact that my French fucking sucked. Okay. Like I was trying to get into one of Canada's biggest telecom companies, but they said, you're really good. We like your personality. Your French just needs work. So what I did was I had to humble myself. I sat down. I spent money that was supposed to go for a car. I spent it on French lessons, intense French lessons. I took the time during the first wave, the lockdown, to improve my
mm-hmm.
French and sharpen it to better my chances of a job. And you know what? It's the best decision I made. You find a way. When you want something that bad, as you said,
100%.
you're gonna do it. And you know what? You might not like it. There are days you don't want to do it, but when you look back, you're gonna thank yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I always say that my current self is like thanking my like past self for like all the grit that she put herself through to like get to where she is. I mean, and I never like I always find it very hard where when you come across certain people who really think that like they deserve something, and I'm like, but you haven't really done anything for it. And again, like I can't speak on your behalf, and I don't know what you've been through, but like no, life isn't easy, and no, it's not fair. Like life fucking sucks sometimes.
When I
So like I don't know, yeah.
no, were you saying? I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt
no,
there.
no. I was gonna just say, like, life isn't fair,
Yeah,
right? And sometimes you can try really hard, and you're just not gonna get that thing.
it's
And you can have a
very true.
tantrum, but like, you're still not gonna get it. So you gotta roll with it.
Yeah, like today, like something I want to talk about too. Like today is this is the 21st episode. Like I had another episode this morning. It was with Renee Stigter, and when I had this, and by the way, a big announcement, Nima Safapour, who's a pro MMA manager, is coming on next week. And when we broke the ice, he said, you talk about life being hard, whether it's like getting a black belt, whether it's starting a podcast, a business, especially podcasting, because people, like, I get messages, they're like, oh, how do you do it? And the truth is, and he said it best, so I'm paraphrasing, everyone wants to go in here thinking they're going to get the big guest right away. They're going to get monetized. They're going to get views. You're going to get a million no's before the yeses come. You're going to have to work your way up. Okay. And sometimes you're lucky. It's perseverance and luck. And you know what? Like, you can't feel you're entitled to it because you get one big name on, oh, okay, no, I could get another one. No, you have to work, man. And
Yeah.
no one becomes Joe Rogan overnight or Ariel Helwani. And, like, it's like, that's why, like, if people tell me I want to start a podcast, just do it. Don't wait. Don't wait for the time. Just do it. Like that's
No.
what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't care, like as mentioned, like I don't care about the likes I get. I don't care if people follow me. I don't care if I get it monetized. I don't care about that. The biggest takeaway for me when I do this show is if someone, when they watch us, Kimm, and like listen to it, and they can apply something to their life that makes them a better person, or if they were going through a tough time and they persevere, whether they're a man, a woman, or child, and they come back to me and then you and say, hey, I really listened to this and I liked it. That means more to me than all the other white noise. I don't care about the attention. It's like you say, you do you, boo.
Yeah, exactly. It's really about just like doing your thing, and this idea too, like people who are the most successful are the ones that are hustling the most, but like they're mostly the quietest of the pack, right? They kind of just like put their head down and you just move forward, right? Because like I'm wasting energy by like looking at the haters or saying all these things. Like no, just like bow your head and do what you want to do. Just focus on your goal and just like grit through it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I mean, yeah. And I also do this podcast too now because, like, I think during the lockdown, when mental health started to really come about, you work with that eating behaviors. I think it's safe to say let's just pull the Band-Aid right the fuck off. What's your take on all this and how the government's managed it?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of reservations about how they went about doing what they went up doing. I always say, at the beginning, it made a lot of sense just because
Yeah,
we didn't really know what was going on, right? So all
right.
the kind of craziness and everyone trying to be safe, it like made a lot of sense. But as the data is coming in and as we kind of understand what this is, and like, where we talk about public health and like physical health, and like no one's really talking about mental health. And just calling 811 is not enough, particularly like working in the public system. Like we have a massive pile of people who need help, who just can't get help, and it's saddening because I mean, everyone's exhausted, just like the healthcare workers themselves as well. So it's very disheartening to see, and somehow they think that this idea that, I mean, I understand this idea of needing to socially distance and make sure that we're trying to stay safe, but also like keeping in mind that like people can't do, like, we're social beings. We're programmed to be social beings. And if you're asking these individuals to isolate themselves for months, it's like, even people who didn't have mental health issues before, like speed up 10 months and they're just not in a good place. So it's hard to see.
It's really tough, and it really angers me is when I hear "ça va bien aller," will be all. Like, you know what?
Oh,
If it's like, like you want to hear something funny, so I work in a big company. And by the way, the views expressed on the show do not reflect on my work I do. So I just want to make that clear. But I had and I work with seniors. Okay, so like I love, like
mm.
I'm gonna quote and paraphrase. So excuse my French here. So I love working with the seniors because they're like they're sharp, they're witty. If they like you
They
when you
are, and they're so funny. They're the best. Yeah.
I had one guy's name is so this one customer named his name was Michelle, and I'm like, oh, hey, he's like, comment allez-vous, vous êtes très jeune. I was like, yeah. I was like, oui, je fais le télétravail. Ah, ok, ok, moi je restais dans la maison. Je pense que c'est comme how do you say prison in French
Oh,
or
good.
jail?
I don't jail. Just say jail,
Yeah,
whatever.
c'est comme un jail. Mais je
Une
suis très pas.
prison. C'est une
Oui,
prison.
c'est une prison. C'est comme parce que mon infirmière va dire ça va bien aller, Michel. OK. Si j'ai entendu ça va bien aller pour le 2000 fois, je vais couper lui dans la face. Ça va bien aller, mais couilles. He's like, he basically said ça va bien aller, these nuts. So I was like,
Yeah.
I was like, customer of the year. I was like, dude, like I'm giving you a 3-month off, like, but like, yeah,
Yeah, no, it's hard. And like at the beginning, this idea like the rain does and everything's gonna be, and like at the beginning, it's all new and we're like all oh, I get to stay at home and I get to have time with the kids. And but I was like, we don't talk so much about the flip side, like it's great if you live in a big house and you have a backyard and you have space to work out, let's say, or you're living in and your family is you know there's no issues going on in terms of your family, right? There's healthy dynamics going on, but not every family is that, right? Not every marriage is the best marriage, and not every, sometimes people leave their house as an escape, right? Particularly sometimes kids go to school so they can get breakfast. Kids go to school so they can get like a break from what's going on inside the household, and like no one's talking about that, which kind of pisses me off as someone who works in that field. It's sad. And then other people who have already quite isolated to begin with are even more isolated. So at the beginning, we used to have day programs at the hospital, but the moment the government shut us down, like those individuals couldn't go. And that was
Yeah.
their only way out, so that they could see individuals and become, we called it like activated, like just getting out of bed and like having a reason to get out of bed. And they don't have that. So for me, it's so heartbreaking. And it makes me so angry, because I'm like, we're not talking about this. We're like putting it under the rug, saying, painting rainbows and saying ça va bien aller. And you're like, well,
The
no, actually.
the worst is too, like, I'm sorry to say, but it's so funny how they have money to find for like the language police and then
Oh, don't get me
strengthening bill
started.
1-on-1. I don't want to make it too political, but you don't have money to fund mental health initiatives or help the healthcare system because, like, I mean, we've spoken off the record, but there will come a time when I give like what's going on, and like I have a terminally ill loved one. We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
And you know, every time I go there, it's like to see them. It's like it's it's like they're deteriorating mentally because they can't like function, and it's like and it makes me so mad. And the government's like they're like I don't know, like with their
Yeah.
hospital system. It's like, and I have a cousin who works in BC. They got it down pat. Bonnie Henry got it down pat, and he said Aruda has to go. He's like Aruda's like
Mhm.
and then if like, but then what they need to do is overhaul the health system. And I know there's a lot of bureaucracy, and we can say it doesn't happen, but they need to audit. Like, and I understand we can say the government was kind of given a bad hand with this too, but everyone's at fault here in terms of like they had the time to get this prepared. So
Yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
shortage of nurses.
And that's been a problem for years, right? Just like what was going on in our old folks homes. People have been talking about this for years, right? It's just that what happened with COVID just kind of exacerbated everything. It just like shone this big bright light on these issues that we've been kind of sweeping under the rug, right? So it's just like much more in your face. And I think now it's affecting more people, and they're like, hey, that's not fair. Like, what's going on, right? Even though people who are working in those systems were saying this is an issue, and it was an issue for years, which is again even more aggravating.
Yeah, so when some people like watch this, they might message us and be like, "Oh, I felt offended when you said they don't." You know what? Put yourself in one of our shoes. Put yourself in my shoes, where you have to see your loved one deteriorate for terminal illness, where the doctors tell you we can't really do much other than make them comfortable. So before you start getting political and patriotic, the, take care of your family. Your health should come first, not this idealism that's like a distraction. Like you're losing your friends, you're losing your loved ones. Like I have like a sheriff. Like I beat a dead horse. I'm gonna say the story until this like I'm taking this story to probably to my grave because it's just so like it's like I was like when I heard it, like I spoke to a sheriff up in Sept-Îles, Quebec, and I asked him, I said, "What's the situation like up there?" Because he had to get the products for his family member. He's like, "Well, listen," he's like, "Before, I used to be on call like if someone tried to commit suicide once every 6 months. Now I'm getting like 5 calls a day.
I know.
Someone's
I
like."
know.
They don't have it because it's so, and it just pains me. And the government's just like, they have time to meet and then, this and that, but like people are losing their businesses, their livelihoods. They can't see their families. Like they need, and then when like our fucking premier did that fucking selfie on his
I
fucking,
know, honest. And I was like, that's great. I was like, come to my little apartment where I have to see patients for like 13 hours a day in this like, super small place, not seeing anyone else, right? Like you don't get to see colleagues, you don't get anything, right? And God, and I'm not even in the hospital system. Like can't imagine the nurses and the doctors and all those people that have to go through these long shifts and all of the protocols that are in place. And it's just yeah, it's very it's demoralizing, and I think it's very much band-aid fixes at this point. And I'm like, why can't we talk about prevention, right? Like preventative methodologies. We know that's important for chronic illnesses, we know that's important for mental illnesses, but we just keep putting band-aids. When he says that we're going to spend X amount millions of dollars on trying to get people to see to be able to see a psychologist, and he says the wait times are like a month, and I'm like, you like eye roll. I'm like, no, it's 8 months, 9 months to see a psychologist, which is absurd.
I'm
Absolutely absurd.
I'm doing the face palm emoji, like not the one on iPhone, but remember the BlackBerry one where it was like with like the scribble
Yeah.
face. It's like I hear this and it's like you know what? It's like okay, it's like a silent clap. It's like bravo, bravo. Not but it's like you're being really inefficient with how you're doing this.
Well,
And
inefficient too, and it's like you're not coming down to the to the place where that like the average human is. And I was like, it's and I was like, you like live in your little ecocosm of your like echo chamber of what you think real world is. Like you don't have kids at home. The premier doesn't have kids at home. He's not having to teach them. All his kids are grown up. You live in a really nice house with a really nice backyard, right? Exercise wasn't your identity, right? Nothing like that. Like you still have a job, you have a sick ass pension, right? And then you're closing down all these businesses where it's literally their livelihoods. You just don't understand. You
and
get to see your colleagues every day. You don't sit in a room for the past 9 months, like doing work on a screen. And like just the fact when he was saying for the curfew, you could see just like how like out of touch he is, where he was telling people, well, like just make sure you go for walks before the 8 o'clock time. And everyone's like, but we have kids. And like I can't just tell my boss, oh sorry, I have to go for a walk now. Like I have to move my work schedule. Like it doesn't work like that. Like you're so out of touch. It just blows my mind.
the best was like the woman who like in Sherbrooke took her husband out on a leash.
On a leash, yeah, that was some other thing. I was like, ooh, I don't know.
That was like the big and like the husband agreed to identify as a dog. So
Yeah,
that was like the best. That was like the biggest. Like really, like it's just to show the lunacy of like how the government is. Like,
completely.
and then sometimes when like the Minister of Security, Genevieve Guilbeault comes on, I'm just like I just hear her talking. I'm like, it's like
I know.
you are incompetent. Like you, and it's basic. Oh, this is the best part. Okay. You want to talk about Quebec? Ontario. I feel Ontario is twiddle D and Quebec is twiddle
It's
dumb.
twiddledum.
And yeah, it's like Ontario. Okay. This supposed to be a martial arts show, but you know what? Fuck it. It's 20%. It's 20% everything else tonight. We're going, it's like Bill O'Reilly says, we're going live. Fuck it. Anyways. So Ontario, I'm listening to the radio. So I have to pick up some groceries, and CJD. I'm going to try to say this. And if this has an effect on you getting your doctorate for what I'm about to say, I don't take responsibility. I'm sorry, sign a waiver, but I'm quoting here. So Ontario has a stay-at-home order, okay? So Premier
Mhm.
Ford says you have a stay-at-home order. You have to stay home only, but if you go outside, we will arrest and fine you without saying there's a curfew. So it's kind of like, what?
Yeah, I
What?
know.
And then Quebec's like, okay, they do it like this, but we'll perfect their stupidity. It's like Ontario's like, I got a big bowl of shit, and Quebec's like, I'll make it shittier. And then the
I
curfew.
know. I know the curfew, and then it applied to homeless people, and I was like, that would imply that they need to have a home to go to, but like that's okay. We don't use common sense in that. Yeah, I know. Again, it frustrated me too because it's like you're taking away one of the, like the people who are going to break the rules are going to break the rules regardless, right? And I was like, you're taking away that one peace of mind that some people, like a good majority of people had, where they could just leave their house after work and just get peace, like, and like that was like their little mental, you know, their like care, like their little care pack kind of thing, like just going out and just like being by yourself in the silence away from your house, right? And I was like, oh man, like I don't know, it's yeah. And I was like, we're 10 months in, and I was like, I wish that we could try to find more like nuanced means around this, right? Like we know there's specific sectors that are, more dangerous or more like higher risk than other sectors, but can we like start trying to, possibly like learn to live with COVID, or what that might look like? I mean, of course, within restraints, because we have to make sure that our healthcare systems don't get overrun. But like to me, this idea of like no one can exercise inside, and like that blows my mind. Like that makes me so angry because like you're assuming that the majority of that, all Quebecers can just go outside and exercise, and
That
like
was so stupid.
it's so frustrating and aggravating because I was like, like everyone is allowed to have a safe and reliable place to work out or to exercise, right? And like not everybody has like a basement that's safe and secure, or they have equipment or like a space that makes sense to work out in either. And they're like, well, just go outside. Just go outside. And I'm like, yeah, but there's ice and there's snow and there's darkness. And I'm like,
Cops.
cops. I just it just, anyways, it makes me, and I feel really sad for the older folks, or individuals who were, I was talking to someone at the hospital whose mother was doing like aquafit in the pool, and they had, you know, it was very safe and secure, and there was like 12 ladies in this Olympic sized pool, and she's like, that was her only kind of um sanity of the week. Like she got to go outside of the house and go to her aquafit class and see her friends, and then now she's not allowed to do that, and she's in such a bad place. And I'm like, really? I don't know, it's disheartening.
It's really bad. Like, and then they're so stupid when they shut down the gyms again. Yeah, just go outside. Yeah. How about shut up? How about check yourself before you wreck yourself? And then
Or they say go skiing, or go, but I was like, that you're assuming that people can afford this type of equipment to go do these sports,
a
right? Or
lot
that
of
they
us
can
are
get them. Yeah.
a lot of people are in debt. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
they're in debt to their eyeballs because of the CERB business. Their
Hmm.
business is closed. Like, you know, they had cuts, and it just angers me. And, you know, I was really happy when guys like, you know, shout out to Christian Menard and some of the personal trainers when they went on the news to like an association of gym owners to try
Hmm.
to open up to
Yeah.
give like, unfortunately, you know, the government, you know, I'm sorry to say, I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but this is mobocracy in terms of the government's behaving like a mafia in a sense. You know, that's with these draconian measures, like, you know, and when people start saying like, you know, about like, it's like, oh, you know, I believe. So you, okay, if you want to stay in your house all day and believe what the government says, okay, but there's others who need to get out and make money and live. So
Yeah, yeah, I know. And I wish again that we could find this like a balance. Like, why do we have to label all sports as bad? I'm like, I can't wrap my head around it. Like, based on what we know of like transmission rates and all this sort of stuff, right? Like, I understand you can't have a packed gym. I get that, but like, why do you have to shut them down entirely and just like kill this whole sector of the economy for what? Like, A, for all the people who own the gym, but also the people who go there to actually prevent illness and keep themselves healthy and keep themselves sane. But oh, like they just nix it. I don't get that. I'm like, why can't we think this through in a way that like is gradual and that there's gray zones, but it's really black and white, which is I can't wrap my head around it.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how John your Sheehan's managed, but I mean, like, look, it's like I can only imagine. Like, I've never met the guy, but you know, he likes my stuff, so shout out, thank you. But but like he basically like I can only imagine how like I don't even have words for it. Like, you know, he's probably have people saying, you know, I don't want to come back because you know he tries to reach out to like I'm done, you know this. Like, what's it been like? Have you been in touch with him? Like, what's it like from what you know? Like,
Yeah,
there's some
yeah,
stuff you
we
don't have to say. Like, I don't want to like to make it, but what has it
no,
been
no.
like?
I think it's like generally like all dojo owners right now. It is part of their livelihood, but it's not even just their livelihood. That's like it's part of your identity, right? Like if you're a karate instructor, you've been doing it for so many years, it's not because you're doing it to make money, right? You're doing it because you love it. You do it because you love the people and it's a community, and then you just get nixed. Right. So not only you get like a big hit to your business and to your livelihood, but you also like lose that community that was so important to who you were, right? I know, like for me in March, I had such a hard time wrapping my head around it because my whole life revolved around the dojo, and like it just stopped, and I was like, wait, what? Um, and the same for a lot of people in our school, and like for him as well. I mean, I can't speak on his behalf, but just kind of based on my understanding, yeah, it's hard because like your dojo's empty. Like that's like, I mean, it's your heart, right?
Yeah,
And now there's no one there. It's so sad to even kind of try to wrap your head around it.
it's very sad, but there is positives. I mean, you know, you know Vincent Michaud, right? He's been on my show.
Mm-hmm.
Vincent's part of the Association of Martial Arts,
Mm-hmm.
and the good news is we do have some dojos that have been actual Kyokushin, because the problem with Kyokushin is like we don't have a federation. It's all like
Yeah,
it's kind
it's
of like
all little organizations
or
everywhere. Yeah.
warlords. And like I said this yesterday, and I'm gonna give credit where it's due to the Lamars and Hugo Perez for joining that association, because there are others that are on this list too. But I said it yesterday. I said, if you want to preach to reopen your dojo and you're a Shi and you say, oh, we're waiting, you don't wait for the government. You join that association. And I said yesterday, I don't care if you're with Shin Kyokushin. I don't give a fuck if you're with IKO1. I don't give a fuck if you're with this. You want to reopen, go join the association. That's where I'll give Vincent Michaud credit. He used his status as a champion to unite everybody in a sense. So good on him. You know what? That's what we
Hmm.
need. And
Yeah.
I'm not calling out Xi'ans directly, but if you get offended by this, if anyone gets offended by what I'm about to say, then you know what? Unfriend me, unfollow me, because I'm taking a stand for what I believe in, because we're only going to get through this if we unite as a community
Yeah.
in the art.
Yeah, I think that we need to have what I like about the association too, it's great. Our school signed up for it as well.
Good.
And
So shout
yeah,
out to
and
you guys.
it's a great initiative. Just as you were mentioning, it's like you have a figurehead and you have this one voice,
Yeah.
right? Like you're collecting all of this chaos and you're putting it in one little package, and you have this one figurehead that can go to the organization, and to the government, and start asking questions, which I like love, and I think is super important, because many voices are stronger than just one,
Yeah.
right?
We are
Which is
stronger
so
when we're
important.
united.
100%. And especially because, and I love about this organization too, it's not just like dojo owners, but there's like Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu and all these different types of martial arts that are coming together under this one umbrella for a greater good, right? Which I think it's awesome what they're doing.
Yeah. Justin, the owner, reached out to me,
Yeah,
like the head of
just
it.
yeah.
He
Yeah, I
actually
know
reached
him.
out to me.
He like his gym is actually like a block away from me. So I've seen him.
Yeah.
We met a couple times.
Yeah. He's got a few
Yeah.
franchises, I think, but or I don't know about a few. I mean, he's got one, but he's doing a good job. Like he reached out to me and I said, look, let me know what your schedule is. Let's make something happen. I said, but yeah, like, I mean, I want to give him that voice, because I really think, martial arts is what really ties the community in. And, look, other than
Yeah.
religion, this is like, people, this is like their religion in a sense. I'm not saying religion, I'm not, and I don't want to debate about like the difference between dogma and this, but this gives them something. And, especially Kyokushin, we have such a rich community here,
We
regardless of
do.
association. And
Yeah.
I just feel that, people like you, Vincent, Julie Lamar, um, Pierre Catafort, Joanne Fournier, Sensei Joanne Fournier. There's a whole list of people. So if I Justin Mancini, if I don't mention if I don't mention names, guys, like just know, like, who I'm talking about. Like I really think, we have a rich community, and we need to show that, like, when we're united, we have a very powerful voice. And with this association, if we work with them, I really think that we can get the government to be like, you know what, that's when the government will be like, okay, these are serious.
Yeah, and I like it too as well. And I was, speaking to Justin about it too, and I was like, it's this idea, like it takes a certain level of grit to make sure that people listen to you, right? It's not that just, and I always say that for anything, right? If one door closes, you find another door. If that door closes, you find a window. If that window's closed, you find the chimney. Like there's some way into the house. It might take a while, but as long as you stay persistent and as long as you keep at it, it's going to work, right? So I think that this is great that the community is kind of coming together, and there's multiple energies that are all working together to try to keep like knocking at that door, right? And then slowly it's going to dissolve. I have no idea when, but we're working at it. You can see the government slowly starting to talk about this idea of what that might look like to start, integrating exercise again
Yeah.
back into the community, because I think that's so important. And regardless of if it's, karate, or if it's swimming, or if it's rock climbing, or whatever it is, but I was like, it's understanding that sports are much more than just, prevention of illness. It's the community, right? There's this level of friendship, this level of commodity that's so important for people's well-being, which is like, you nix it when you shut these places down, which is like, it blows my mind. But I think if you're not in that type of community, you don't understand that aspect of it, which is a little bit disheartening.
It is. And that's why, like, we're gonna take a talk to about community now. I mean, we've done enough here about making this political. I mean, man, it's like, ugh. Man, there's enough negativity in the news, you know. I mean, but I mean, look,
We're
I didn't want to
turning the page, turning the
exactly
page.
turn the page. So talk about community. You know, I think from what I understand from your dojo, John, how do you say his last name?
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna
Xian
Calidopoulos.
John. Fuck it, I'm Xian John. Suck with the last name.
Calidopoulos.
Calidopoulos. Okay.
Calidopoulos.
Calidopoulos. You say that 5 times just till we get it. Like, anyway, so Xian John Calidopoulos, your Xian's done such a good job. You know, I've spoken with Pedro, I've spoken with others. So open-minded. He definitely is of what Kancho Midori wants, to keep it open-minded and, you know, not keep it like to this status where it's like you're in. If you're out, you're out. Like,
yeah.
And what is it that you think has made him so successful, like with that open mind and and very popular?
I think it really, I mean, you'd have to ask him, but for me, I think because he's so humble, if you meet him, so incredibly humble. And I think and he's always wanting to learn, and he's always willing again to kind of put his ego aside and kind of like collect all these different, you know, and go to different places and be very open-minded and collect all these different experiences and then bring it back to the dojo and teach it to us, which I think is so great, because if you stay closed-minded and if you think you're the best in your own little ecosystem, you just don't get those experiences and you don't grow. So I think part of it is this humility that's about him. Like, he's really about staying open-minded and thinking outside of the box, and like, maybe I don't have all the answers, but I'm gonna, you know, look elsewhere, which is really great.
You also have Yannick. You also know Yannick Renaud. He was on my show. Amazing human being. That guy is just the definition of like what a good human is. Like, so pure, and he's what Kyokushin is. And, you know, so I just want to ask you, like, how do you remember Yannick when you guys did that competition in Kazakhstan? Let's talk about that.
Oh my God, that trip. That was such a fun trip.
What's Kazakhstan like?
Interesting, to say the least. I don't know if I would ever go back. Not to say that it wasn't a bad culture or anything. It was just different. Very different. The people were really lovely, but it's just a different culture. I just remember eating a lot of pickles and horse meat. And I was like, yeah, it was good. So what do I remember about Yannick? He's just funny. His dynamic with Ben and himself, they're just bros. I don't know how to explain it. And you're putting them together and you're just listening to two bros talk, but in a very like chill way. They're cool vibes.
One's from France and one's from Quebec, but it's like Yannick has really been adopted by Quebec, and it's like he's the adopted Frenchman from France. It's like Yvonne of the Yukon, but just like it's a bad analogy.
But he's very like easygoing, super low key, kind of goes with the flow, like analyzes the situation, doesn't have to say anything, and then he'll just like drop a sentence and you're like, you're funny, like you're cool.
He's amazing. I love him. Like, you know, like but he's just when you get to know him, like when you hear a story, like after, like, you know, there's like, cause there's things that like I'm not going to say that was off the record about him that like, I love that man, you know, like it's like, and he's just so like takes the time to like, when he saw that I was talking in French, because I did a French interview only one, and so
cool.
far.
Oh, amazing. And you were saying your French wasn't very good. Look at you doing a full French interview.
Yeah, it wasn't, but you know what? Like, I got more kudos from it. And I mean, there's more coming. I mean, because there are some Xians that speak preferably more French. So yeah, I understand, you know, like people that don't speak French are going to be like, what is he saying? But it's just to really bring Quebec's Kyokushin culture to the forefront, because it was Jacques Dupont, amazing human. Like that was one guy that I wanted to get on in French only, just to be like, that's the first of French only one. It's a good test. I think he's going to really support. And yeah, the next one would be Steph Marcotte from my last kumite. And hopefully, I mean, I think, you know, if the goal of the show, Kimm, and I think you could support this, is it doesn't matter what language you speak. If we all breathe and practice Kyokushin, we're speaking the same language universally.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. I mean, even if you go, like, when you go overseas to camps or to tournaments, I mean, we don't all speak English, right? Like, everyone's speaking different languages. Can't make like signs and, but again, like, we come together for like a common love, which is so cool. Which is really amazing. Yeah.
It really is. What's now you've competed, and I did not want to forget to ask this. So you're up there with Julie Lamar, and that's a very high accolade. Julie is considered like the greatest ambassador for women's Kyokushin. You're up there too. What does that mean to you, as and what is she has and what do you think made you the fighter that you are to be up there in that category?
Um, yeah, it's really cool because I remember Judy when I was younger. I used to go when I was still doing semi. I mean, I can't. Yeah, I remember it was like nighttime and everyone gets to get together and watch like Knockdown. I remember that, and she was like the icon of like women Knockdown. And that was so. And I wasn't competing Knockdown at that point because I was too young. And I really looked up to her. And I thought that was so cool. So for me, it's a really cool transition because like now you're like getting to speak with her and train with her, and I'm one of the, I guess, like lightweight champ and she's the heavyweight champ, so it's kind of cool. And it's like, oh man, like I used to look up to you, but you know who I am, which is really amazing as well. So how did I get there? I don't know. I think it really has to do with just the personality of this very like growth mindset. I was like, just keep working at it, keep learning, keep putting in the effort. And some tournaments don't turn out the way you want, but like that's okay. You just go back to the drawing board and you keep training, and you again shelve that ego, and you just keep rolling with the punches. And then at the end, like something just like clicks, and you kind of find yourself into this the kind of the next step. And then again, you keep training harder and learning. So it's just this evolving process and being open to that, which I think is very important.
Yeah, she's awesome, man. Like I've only met her once, but it was so funny. Like I go park at my the gym I train at, and I see her. She's like, "Oh, hey." She's like, "Hey, Andrew." And I was like, "Oh, hey." She's like, "You don't know me, do you?" I'm like, she's like, "Oh," she's like, "I'm Julie." She's like, "You mentioned me on your podcast." I was like, "Oh." I'm like, "Yeah, cool." She's like, "Well," she's like, "You do a great job, by the way." She's like, "I love it. I love to come on." She's like, "I'm just really busy," but she's like, "Keep doing it." She's like, "Keep doing it." She's like, "You're really representing Kyokushin well." And it was very humbling to hear that from her, because yeah, if she
Yeah,
said something
she's
like that's a
yeah.
nice stamp of approval.
Yeah, she's very, like, she's not only a very good karateka, and she's a very good like instructor, and she's an amazing student, and she's so incredibly humble, but she's also just like a cool person, and she's so funny. Which I love that, right? I mean, she doesn't take herself super seriously. I mean, she is serious when she needs to be, but she can also like just like crack a joke, which I can really appreciate. But I think also lots of shout outs have to go to her mom, because her mom is like a rock star. Sylvie,
Yeah.
Lamarche, just like crazy, that woman.
From what I've understood, she's very sharp. She's extremely sharp-minded, and I definitely would love to host her too one day if she's up to it. I mean, the Lamars can always come on anytime. I mean, I've said it. The door's open. It's just a matter of the timing, because they're so freaking busy. But
Yeah, they're really busy.
yeah,
But it's even to just go to like a training of theirs is just like, oh, so like the energy that they all have. You're like, oh, like, very cool. It's fun.
yeah, I'm very happy that they're in Kyokushinkan, which is Royama's organization, and shout out to Sensei Russo, who's like amazing sensei, and also like one of the early backers of the show. So always got to give him like credit where it's due, and it's nice to have the Lamars in Con, because it's gonna give more exposure. Because here's a funny story. So when I was at my last tournament I did, which was Marcotte's tournament, um, Kancho Fujiwara, who's of fuck, what's the organization? It's like they split from Royama, but it's Marcotte's organization, but it's like one of those little ones anyway. So the thing was, back in the day, Mo and Julie only competed in IKO one. You know how IKO is? It's like it's very like you stick within, and if
It's
you leave,
closed-minded. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're like stuck in your box.
But they have the best fighters coming out of there. That's the thing. So Mo and Julie were like, it was kind of like the UFC where you have John Jones, and like I always say Mo's kind of like a John Jones of Kyokushin because he's just miles ahead. And then you have
Mhm.
Julie, who's like a Valentina Shevchenko, just an absolute killer when she puts that switch on. And I know I use a lot of MMA analogies here. So but anyways, point is when Mo met Fujiwara, Mo was supposed to fight this Japanese champion, and I'll never forget it. So Fujiwara comes up to me. He's like, so you are Mohammed Chick of Canada. He's like, us. And he's like, oh, he's like, we have a champion that we've been waiting for a long time, but due to IKO 1, we couldn't have that fight. He's coming November. You better be ready. And Mo's like, okay, but the fight didn't materialize because things happen and whatnot,
Mhm.
timing.
Mhm.
But man, that would have, it was like, and that's what I like now, that they're separate from that IKO 1. They're like doing their own thing, and that just gives them exposure to more fights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think too, it's just getting that exposure and getting all these different experiences really help you grow as a fighter. I mean, and if you're not fighting, it also helps you just grow as a student, right? It helps you, and again, same as teaching in just different at different dojos and being a student at different dojos. You get so many different perspectives, which I think is so important, right? Because you can pick and choose kind of things that you like, and you can think about stuff. And again, this idea that if we stay in our own dojo and if we only train in this one little like equal cause, and we see the world through like a specific lens, whereas for me I'm like, oh, that's kind of limiting, at least for me, in terms of how I kind of understand my growth as a fighter and as someone who trains in karate. So yeah, so I'm like, it's very important that I go about and collecting different glasses so that I can look at the world differently and kind of take bits and pieces of what I think is helpful.
Very true. Yeah, like there's Russo's dojo. I mean, one day I might want to try the Hugo's dojo. Maybe one day I want to try the Lamar's, or after that I want to try Jacques Dupont's, or maybe Joanne Fournier's. And it's and I just want to see like how everyone teaches differently, because the art's not linear.
No,
It's very like broad. Yeah, broad. It's
it's
very broad.
broad.
Yeah.
It's broad, and everyone has their own teaching style. Everyone has their own emphasis. So if you train at Shan Hugo's dojo, it's going to be different than training at Shan Luciano's dojo or training at our dojo. Everyone comes at it a little bit differently. So I always find it very humbling when you go to a different dojo and it's not your comfort zone. And you're asked to do different things and put them in different combinations that you're not used to. And it kind of brings back this new student vibe. If you train at your dojo, it's always kind of the same stuff, it's the same warm-ups, and you get kind of in your vibe, right? But I think it's always really important to kind of step out of your comfort zone, and then you're like, oh shit, like what are they asking me to do? And you have to like think a little, which is good. It's
Oh
good.
man, it was so crazy. Like, I mean, I'm telling you, that Marcotte's tournament, that was like my coming out party. Like, in terms of like, it's like, yeah, this is Andrew, student of Mohammed's. Like, it's so funny. Like, when I was with my old school, no one knew who I was. They didn't care really. I go to the tournament. Oh, you're with Mohammed? Don't worry. Okay, you're in good hands. Oh, and then Shion Ray Cormier is like, where was your teacher before? I mentioned the name. Who's your teacher now, Mohammed? Yeah, you stick with Mohammed. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. So it's nice, I found my teacher, and you know what? Like, that guy's like my brother, man. Like he's really I'm always gonna say it, he's changed my life for the better. And that's what I love about
what
Kyokushin.
what do you like about Mohammed, or about your school, like right now, if you were to kind of pinpoint it?
Well, I like being independent, that's for one thing. The
Mm-hmm.
second thing is Mohammed is a very tough teacher. He's very tough in terms of like what he expects of what, not only how you are inside when you're with him, but how to be outside. Because I used to be a fucking idiot. Like I had a big fucking mouth. And I'll be honest, like I had a big fucking mouth. Like I had an ego. I had an ego during the first lockdown too. And like I was like getting mad at some people because there's shit that was out of my control, like, for everybody.
Yeah.
And but what makes him a good teacher is like he knows how to like get me, because I'm kind of like a Dennis Rodman minus all the antics, being friends with Kim Jong-un and whatnot. So because I do have like some ego, like I really do. Like Dennis Rodman, look at Dennis. He basically, Mo is like the Phil Jackson to my Dennis Rodman, because he gets me, and I'm hard to work with, because my last school too, like when I had issues with some of the teachers, because they weren't the nicest to me. Like I had one senpai that famously said, je pense que tu es retard dans la tête, parce que tu n'as pas sais le premier kata. Si tu ne sais pas le premier kata, tu n'as pas reçu votre ceinture orange. I was like, and how do you say that? And then after that, like I always kind of like looked at him with contempt. There's some other
Yeah,
people
it's
there. Like
hard. It's not
it's
it's not helpful.
it was a bad environment. I'm not gonna lie. If I was at my old school, I would have quit. I would have quit,
Yeah.
because there was
Yeah,
some shit.
yeah.
They did some shit, and Mo was the one that said, "Look, just put your head down. Get out of there when you get your green belt. Get out of there. If you're not happy there, get out. I'm gonna teach you. We're gonna find a way. We're gonna find a way to get you a brown and black belt." So he really saw my potential. And I mean, I love Kyokushin. I mean, and I just have to be with the right-minded people that love the art for what they do. It's like talking to people like you. Like I remember, like I really want to give you a shout out, because there were times off the record. I remember when I talked to you and I was like, oh, fuck this, fuck that. And you were like, Andrew, you're so calm with your psychologist thing. You're like, your psychology side, you're like, you're a good person. There's fucking dumbasses everywhere. Focus on the
Yeah, just
positives.
don't listen to the noise. It gets you
Yeah.
sucked in, right? You lose so
Yeah.
much energy about it, which is good. And I'm happy for you that you found some like anchor that kind of takes you. Sometimes we all do it. We go down these massive rabbit holes and we get like so angry. I mean, like me at the first lockdown, I was so angry and I didn't know where to put my energy. So I again like ruminate and get like all stuck in these rabbit
Yeah.
holes. And you just like click yourself out, like, hello, this is not helpful. This is totally not helpful. Like eye on the prize, my friend, right? So for
Yeah.
you, it's if you're doing your podcast, or if you're trying to train and get to a specific goal, and you just like focus on that and like don't listen to the noise. It's not helpful.
What really changed was when, for me, was in October, when I got the news of like what I told you, a terminally loved one is like got a terminal
Mm-hmm.
illness. That really changed stuff, and it really made me focus on
Yeah.
like what matters most, like my full-time job I have, tending to them when I can, getting whatever kind
Mm-hmm.
of exercise I can. That's what I care about. Like I don't care if people get offended, like by something I say on my podcast. Like I really don't. Like I just say, if you're so offended, just unfollow and friend me. The button's right there. I'm not engaging in this conversation. I've told people
Mm-hmm.
no. I just tell people I'm busy. Like some people say, hey, like I had one person that says, well, I want to come on your show with this person. And I said, no. I said, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. I said, this is how I do it. Like, and if you don't like it, oh well. And I just move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it's realizing too that you're your own gatekeeper to your life, right? You're your own gatekeeper as to who you kind of keep in your circle and who you turn, who you invest your attention towards, right? We have a limited capacity towards our attention. It's like a gas tank, right? And at one point, if we're spewing all this gas all over the place, we have no gas for ourselves and we're like stuck in this one place. So for me, I guess, like as I'm kind of continuing with like my career and everything like that, I'm starting to realize like I just don't have enough gas, and there's like some things that make no sense to invest gas in because it just like depletes me. And why? Like it's not helpful, right? I just get tired and I get annoyed and get angry, but for what? Right?
Yeah, I really want to thank you for that, because like like when I remember when I spoke with you, you were like, you're doing good already. You've already won. And I was like, oh yeah, I already won. Yeah, like I'm already winning because
Yeah,
I'm doing.
yeah, and we just have to remind ourselves that because sometimes we get so stuck in those rabbit holes, we just forget it. I mean, we're all human, we all do it, but sometimes we have to just like click out of it and say like, no, I'm I'm the other person is winning when I'm investing energy in them. The
Right.
moment I realize that like I'm not investing energy in them, like their power on me is like it's nixed. Because like I'm no,
Yeah, it's very
you're
true.
not
No,
important enough to invest energy in that.
exactly. Like, I mean, look, I mean, as mentioned, look what I'm looking at, like today, like as mentioned, when, with, what was it? When I made that post, like today, like today it was when I did that post about saying it's 20 episodes already, like,
Yeah,
20.
it's really amazing.
And it's like, and I just put my time into that. Like, and people ask me, well, how are you so good at it? I'm obsessed. As I mentioned, I don't care about the white noise in the background. I post and I ghost. I'm just here to try to make an impact in someone's life, because when I opened up about my battle with mental illness, um, there's three people that were there for me when I opened up with what was going on with me. It will come out eventually, like in detail, but like I was battling, like I told, it was my mom, Mohammed,
Mhm.
my stepbrother, And you know what? There's a fourth person. It was my old coach before Mohammed, not in karate, but he's more MMA. But he's trying to teach me Kyokushin because I enlisted the help before I understood. I met Mo, and yeah, and that's why it's like if they helped me, and I mean, the most I can do is I get the minds on. And as mentioned, when people start telling me like, oh, well, I listened to your show and this really applied to my life, and I care about that. Or like when like one time, like who was it? I mean, I had Jacques Dupont on, and I remember, and like three senseis like from Quebec messaged me in French, and they were like, hey, félicitations, c'était un très bon effort, tu parlais comme un naturel, oui, pas ignore s'il y a personne qui a dit, oh, votre français c'est un peu mauvais avec l'accent, ignore ça, l'effort c'est plus important pour vous.
Yeah. Yeah, which is true, right? Like just focus on your goal. And like, and really, and I have to kind of commend yourself for it, because there's a lot of people who would get that kind of nix from a job saying your French is just not good enough, and then be like, but right. Whereas for you, you're like, no, screw that. Like I can get better, right? I'm going to invest time and invest energy in improving this skill, right? Because I realize that this is a barrier for me moving forward, right? So like kudos to you, because a lot of people wouldn't do that, and that's kind of where they're stuck stagnant, and then they're yelling at the person who's ahead of them because they're angry, right? Or they're jealous, or they're whatever. But it's realizing that like, I can't help you, but I made a choice that I'm going to better myself.
Exactly. That's what it is. Like even with my French, like I don't want to get political here because I understand there's a lot of Anglophones and they use the term political orphan. I'm a political orphan, because like I don't see myself that way. That's just me. I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for every Anglophone in Montreal, Quebec, but I can speak for myself. And you know what? I love learning French. And it's what? It is hard, but that's the sacrifice you make. You have to know that you're gonna fuck up so many times. Like I used to suck at French. I'm still not the best, but I make the effort, and it's step by step. And that's my struggle that I choose. My struggle that I choose is becoming bilingual and getting my black belt. Because when I get my black belt, I don't wear my black belt as a belt or as like a status thing, like with the gold stripes. My goal when I get black belt is to work with Mohammed to a certain degree, like we kind of said it, but I'm going to do it. It's going to happen somehow, some way. I'm going to become a Sandan, and I will work with at-risk youth and special needs kids because I know what it's like to be at the bottom of the barrel. I was not at risk. I am on
Mm-hmm.
the autism spectrum mildly. Like I've openly spoken
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want those kids to know that you can change your circumstance. If you believe in what Kyokushin or martial arts teach, whether it's Taekwondo, Kyokushin, Shotokan, and use that as an outlet to mold yourself as a better person, you have more to offer and give to this world than you realize.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think and I love what you're saying too, because I think it's this power of being like an instructor or giving back in whatever you do. It doesn't have to be for karate, but it could be just like teaching a skill or something. Like you touch so many people and you change so many lives, which other types of jobs might not have. Right? This idea of like as a psychologist, when you see a patient, like you give a piece of yourself, right? And it kind of goes all over the place. And just like as even a karate instructor, I think of all the people that my Shian has like touched throughout the years in terms of like life skills or life lessons that they learned from this thing that happened to them, and they kind of take it and put in their pocket, right? And that sort of changed them, which I think is so cool, because there's very few careers or professions that are able to do that or able to touch so many lives the way that like an instructor can.
Very true. Like, I mean, there's your Xian. Another case study would be Reynald Lamar, the late Reynald Lamar, God rest his soul. One of arguably the greatest of all time in Quebec Kyokushin, up there. He's going to be up there if there's a Mount Rushmore for Quebec Kyokushin, Xian Reynald Lamar has to be on that mountain. Because there's a story, like I remember when I first got into Kyokushin and I read a news article, and when he passed, and there was like thousands of people at the funeral, and there was one guy in particular, tattoos, nose piercing, and he couldn't contain himself. And that just goes to show you like the piece of yourself you leave in that person wherever they were in their life. And then like they find out that this person helped them. So you really like when you're a Shian, like or sensei, like it's really important to know what kind of impact you're leaving. Like another one is Mark Pronovo, who's Vincent Michaud sensei. And I look at a guy like Mark and a guy like who's taught a guy like Vincent, and Vincent was one of the ones who really encouraged me to get better at French. He really was.
Mm-hmm.
He really
Mm-hmm.
was. And he said, and he doesn't want to take credit for it, but Vince, you really do deserve credit here because I mean, you're the one that really pushed the encouraging. But Vince had a very good saying. He's like, when you do good and believe in good, good comes back to you.
100%. Yeah.
I believe in that theory so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. 100%. And anyways, so yeah, so similar to you and your podcast, right? All the things you want to do, and you're saying, it's not so much about the monetary aspect of it, but it's really just like, if I could just change someone's life or have someone think about something differently, like that's me winning, right? And that's you giving a little piece of whatever yourself is, and they take in their pocket, and it kind of changes their trajectory, which I think is like, it's super cool. It's a cool thing.
I like what I want when you came on. The goal is for this conversation is there might be a girl out there, because I don't want to have just like male. I want to have females. Like there's a girl out there and she might be feeling, unsure what career path she wants. She gets into martial arts and she sees this and that empowers her. If we have like another killer, like who could be in the next Julie Lamar or Kimm Carriere, because they listened to this interview with and they just took away one, maybe two things that you said, and they come back and say, hey, I heard this podcast. I can go to my grave knowing that I really made a difference in people's lives. And as
Yeah, yeah,
mentioned,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I think it's really important too. Like, I mean, as an instructor and as a student as well, but like in anything, I mean, we're talking about karate, but it could be in anything that you do. It's like understanding that people like look up to you, right? And I was saying, even as like a female in the sport, right, and like doing something that maybe some females don't think that they could even do, but also this idea that like you can all like, I always get so sad when I like meet young girls who stop sports because they turn to like their friends or the girls in their girl group just like aren't doing sports, and they're like, it's not cool, they're like, the boys won't like me, or I have to do school, and like I don't have time for extracurricular activities. And I was like, oh man, like like there is a way, there totally is a way. And I think that it's important that you kind of wear your identity with honor, right? And like saying that this is something that's really important for me, so I'm going to slot in some time, and maybe other people are not going to understand that. Like my friends always make fun of me about, oh, I'm so nerdy, but like, Matt, just own it. Like I love it. And if I talk about my research, or if I talk about something, like everyone's like, what are you talking about? But I was like, man, it makes me happy, so I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm just going to wear it with pride, right? And like hopefully just mentor as many people as I can, and give as many people pieces of me, for others to like hopefully pass it forward to someone else.
Very true. I think that's the most important, because when you become a black belt, you're really learning, and you have to represent the art. You really are
Mm-hmm.
now the real student of life and what the art is. And there's many people that just seen many black belts that just don't qualify. Like like my
Yeah.
first Sempai I had. I mean, but then I got out of there, and now I'm seeing like there's so many just good guys out there, like Vincent, who's a Nidan like yourself. The Allaire family in New Brunswick. These are like Martin Allaire is like, his son fought in China with Vince, and they competed it for Canada. Just a
Mm-hmm.
stand-up guy, man. Like there's so many good people in Kyokushin, and it's like that's what I want to highlight. If Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has the best community, well, you know what? This podcast is to raise it up. As Sensei Patrick Pinto said, that when I had him on my show from the Kyokushin Shuffle, Patrick Pinto said it best. Sosai wanted us to raise the art, so that's why I do this podcast, is to raise it and give the credibility it deserves. So having minds
Yeah.
like you on, it helps. I want you to know that.
Thank you. Well, I mean, it's fun to chat about it. And like I said, it's always humbling, and it's always fun to talk to people who are like in the community and who are also kind of like-minded, like they just like understand it. So I think it's important to have a platform where people can share the positivity, or you get a side of, because we always think, oh, they're just a black belt, but like, no, you're not a black belt. You come to the school with a whole bunch of other stuff in your backpack, right? And like people are so interesting when you get to sit down and talk to them, which I think is really important as well.
Very true. Very true. So I want to ask you, this is something I want to ask you. What is your most memorable fight?
Oh, that's interesting. I would
Yeah.
say my most memorable fight was probably the first time I went to Worlds for Shin Kyokushin. So it's an open tournament, so it's any weight class. So I'm going there, I'm like, 120 pounds, skinny thing from Canada, and I thought it was so cool. I think for me it was the most memorable fight because it was in this massive stadium, and I've never fought in a stadium that was like packed to the rooftops. Like if you were to go to like a Habs game and you see it like from packed to the rafters of people and this one tatami and all the lights are like blaring on you. And it was such a out of body experience. I remember I was so nervous. I was fighting against this Brazilian and she was so much heavier than I was. She was like hitting like a brick wall. And I loved it because it was almost like the world like slowed down because you're just like so high on adrenaline. So I'd say that's my most memorable fight, just because it was my first time like being on like a big international stage and like getting that wave of like anxiousness and excitement and all those like mixtures of emotions that maybe not everybody like gets to have an opportunity for that. So yeah, I think that I would say that's my most memorable one.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so you fought openly in the open weight tournaments. Most memorable, and did you have one win in particular that meant the most for you when you represented Canada?
Probably like my first, I think the most memorable one for me was when I first placed. It was at the Diamond Cup. Again, it was a shin tournament. I was fighting like as a lightweight, and I placed like on the podium for the first time, and it was so cool because you look up to these women and then you're standing on a podium with them, and I was like, oh wow, I think I made it. Not made it, but like this idea of like I made to the next step. Not that I'm the best at all, like by far, but like I've made it into like that group. And you're like, now I'm going to hustle even more because now it's going to be even harder, right? Because you've passed that kind of middle pack. So like that was very cool because it was an interesting experience because usually you're in just like the stands watching the finals, but then you're actually there being able, or like the kind of the semis and the finals, but then you're actually getting to be the one participating in it. I was like, that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really happy that you could explain that. And now, obviously, I could talk to you for hours, but obviously, I have to cap this show. But I want to know, where can people find you, because you're going to be a doctor as of next week. So congratulations. I want to say
you
deserve it. You're going to make an amazing psychologist.
Thank you. I hope so. It's a plan.
You earned it. You, one step at a time. Don't overthink it. Just do what you did. Just keep persevering.
Yeah. Thank you.
So where can people connect with you on social media?
Well, you can find me. It's super easy to find me because my name's spelled with 2 M's. So find Kimm Carriere. Always put in 2 M's. I think I'm like one of the only people with 2 M's on Facebook. So you'll be able to find me. You can message me there.
It's no Instagram or Twitter or TikTok.
No, I'm super old school. Just that.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's better. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm too busy to go down those rabbit holes. So it's like, I'll just stick with Facebook. It's fine.
It's smart. Well, I once again, Kimm, I really want to thank you for coming on. It was such a pleasure to host you. The door's open anytime you want to come back. We still got to do that. We have an inside joke. Get you, Justin, and Pedro on when the timing's right. And but it's gonna come. Or we'll do 2 of you, or I don't know. Like, it's up to you guys. I mean, I'm flexible. Like, the door's always open for you 3.
We'll figure something out.
Hey, it's like you said, if you can't get in the house the first time through the door,
we go through the door and then the window and then the chimney. We find a way.
And if there's plan A doesn't work, you use plan B. And then after plan B,
there's C, D, E, F, go through the alphabet. It's fine.
Exactly. Like, I mean, yeah, like someone asked me, how'd you get that biggest guest you just got? I said, I went through plan Z to get it. No, I'm just kidding. No,
I dug through this massive hole. I did the whole trench up into the house. It's fine. It worked.
It worked, yeah. I destroyed the garden, but you know what? Did I get in the house?
I did. That was the goal. It's good.
All right. Well, this episode is going to be on YouTube, Spotify, Apple. I'm technically challenged, so it's going to be on every audio platform there is, thanks to Anchor Podcast. And by the way, this show is brought to you by Forever the Student by Sensei Patrick Pinto. I should have said it at the beginning. It's the book that's about Kyokushin, picking the minds of picking the greatest minds in Kyokushin or other martial arts and how they got to where they are. Also, KRT, Karate Tips and Tricks with Wesley Jensen, Sensei Wesley Jensen, and Sensei Darren Stringer, bringing everyone together during these difficult times on TikTok, Instagram, and yeah, so make sure to give him a follow if you love martial arts, and same with Patrick Pinto. And follow
Yeah.
Dr. Kimm Carriere next week when she gets her doctorate.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Good night.